Hello and welcome back to the studio. Today I'm bringing you a bit of a different type of video. I'm just going to bring you along on my painting process. I am reworking a painting, so I'm not starting from scratch. This is a painting I started several years ago that inspired my current series. So I made this painting. In itself, it can be a finished painting, but I always had a vision for it to be just a little different, and now that I've made 5 other paintings in the same series, I've decided to be brave and rework this other one. One of the reasons I'm not just leaving it and moving on and making a new one is because I live in an apartment. I don't have a ton of space. It's a huge painting for the space that I do have, and so I'd really rather just that this painting be something new, something that matches the other ones, not matches like color or anything, palette, no, but just has the same feel and result that the other ones do. So it's kind of cool that in its, I do risk losing. I will lose the current painting I have, right? I'm making something new over top, kind of. It will live on in a different way underneath this new painting, but it had its life. It had a really strong purpose in my creative arc because it is a launching point for my new entire body of paintings. So that's cool. I just have to honor it for what it was, embrace the risk, and hope for the change that I'm looking for this piece. I've already started reworking it. It had a little chickadee up at the top left corner, and I've already painted 2 more chickadees in the painting, and now I'm working the body of the painting, the background. This is some insight on as much planning or as much thought that's going into the beginning part of it, and that is I have an overall aesthetic that I'm looking for. And I've got my 5 paintings of this new series right on the wall beside me, so I can kind of refer to them and keep those in mind as I work. I have a photograph that I took this summer in Canada of some cedar trees on a favorite hike near my mother's house, and I've doctored it a little bit, just kind of skewed the colors, softened it, taken out detail, things like that, just because normally I wouldn't do that. I would just use a regular photo and then do all the warping and adapting and creative solution in my head. But because this is an already started painting, because it's so large, I just wanted to eliminate one extra challenge for myself, and I thought this would be a kind of a nice tool. It's not cheating, but it's using technology to take one step out of my head. And this isn't necessarily like I'm going to copy it now perfectly, but it's taking the photograph, the photo resource, and abstracting it just one step for me. So I will see how that works. I've not done this before. Trying to think. I really don't think I've ever adapted a photograph. I've always just abstracted it in my head. I don't have any programs for that kind of thing. I just tried to do this on Canva, that free website where you can sort of do design. I just decided to photo edit in that program and see what happened. And I think the result is kind of cool. So we will see. It's all an experiment. We will see how much I deviate from that photo resource. We will see how much of that ends up in the final painting. Most of these paintings have completely abstracted backgrounds with a realistic bird hanging out in them. Each painting is the spirit and the feeling of that bird. So their song, their movement, and the emotion that seeing them, watching them brings up in me. So they're little moments in nature, moments with wildlife that, you know, sometimes we see in our own backyards, not too wild, but moments and experiences with those that are beyond the purely visual. I'm trying to, like, the abstraction brings in more of my emotion, my experience, my energy, their energy, and some of the magic that is experiencing nature or being in an outdoor space. Maybe that's a little insight into some of the thought or the feeling behind this series. Take it or leave it. I want my paintings to have their own life, and if you connect with them in a different way and see them as something entirely different, that's awesome too. There aren't rules. I don't need rules for people viewing my art or experiencing my art. So you enjoy it however you'd like to. But that's a little bit of the inspiration behind the impetus to make these paintings. I'm going to give you a little time lapse of the process of what I'm doing today, because I think I'll be here a while, and so I'd rather do that than film and fast forward this beastie. I hope you enjoy. All right, so what now occurs is an 8-hour painting day. This is what it looks like. I think I might even been there 9 hours. And I start with the skeleton of a tree shape, and then I'm starting to go in and just add these blobs of background, and then I'll carve into them next with the sky. I actually sit down here and have my lunch while just quietly staring at and contemplating the painting. Getting some distance from it will always bring a fresh perspective. You find technical things that need solving, and then you also make some conceptual connections as well by just looking at it without holding any brush or any paint for a while. Sometimes I take notes at this stage. I think it's interesting watching my eyes go between the paintings already on the wall and the one I'm working on. You can see here I just stopped for a meditation break to really recenter and give myself a bit of a reset for the afternoon of painting. At this point it had already been hours, so I needed to reset and kind of clear my head so that I could be fully present when I got back to the painting. So now I'm back at it for the afternoon, and I'm working a lot of the foliage in there, and some blue, trying to carry big chunks of color through the painting. So like a swath of orange down below, a swath of blue up top, and that sort of typical turquoise green making its way into most of my paintings. You can see it's kind of good to note how often I step back from a painting, at least a couple meters, to get perspective on it, especially with, the bigger the work, the farther back you need to step. Working in some sky here now finally, around the branches and kind of carving and defining more of those branch shapes. And there comes a point in every painting where I have to let go of my initial intention and just make a good painting and really just focus on what this painting needs, what direction it's gone in, and follow through with that rather than fight it. My husband got home, I rested for a moment there and stared at the work from a little bit of a distance, and then hopped back in, trying my best to bring it to a close before the end of the day. And then you can see me now really laying in the whole top right corner in yellow, the sky behind, and tightening up a bit of the drawing at the bottom. And that's all the footage I've got for you of making it, but I thought you might find it interesting to see, like, truly behind the scenes, what it's like to work in an apartment, spare bedroom as your studio. I don't have a fancy studio. Used to share quite a big one, but the lack of air conditioning made it near impossible to work in there without getting dizzy. So I've since just moved into the spare room of my apartment, and I'm trying several different ways of getting this painting high enough. So I prop it up here on this tub of other paint supplies. Cleaned one side of the wall, then moved the camera tripod and cleaned up the whole other side so that it's functional, so that I don't go reach for a paintbrush and knock 6 things over, or light anything on fire with that candle I have going on the bookshelf. This is me preparing my disposable palette. I use them for quite some time and then kind of roll them up and pitch them, but I find they're really helpful with acrylic. I used to work on a glass palette, but I don't have room for it right now, so I just use this one. I have a little bit of footage, fast forwarded, of me working on this next painting. This one is a barn owl, and while I was working, I was chatting with my little niece on FaceTime, who was homesick, and it was a really sweet afternoon. She needed some company and distraction, and so I just set up the phone so she could watch me while I worked, and we had some conversations. I caught myself falling into the problem of focusing on specifics instead of working from general to specific. So I refocused on the whole bird, a bit of the outline, and started in on the wing, which I felt was probably going to be the most challenging, and it was the biggest part of this barn owl as well. I'm working in oil right now. I find its blending properties are way more forgiving than if I worked in acrylic for this stage of the painting. So the background's worked in acrylic in fast layers, then the owl or bird is in oil, and then I use oil wherever else I feel like I need to tidy up or blend in and just sort of finishing touches on the painting. So here's the chickadee painting all complete. You can see that small areas of the previous underpainting are preserved, especially around that bird in the top left corner. But that's how it turned out. It's really transformed, and I don't regret it. And here's the owl one. It is not done yet, but this is where I am now. Well, I hope you enjoyed getting a little behind the scenes insight into my process. Still working on this one, and the finished chickadees is still back there. Currently nowhere else to put it. You can see that I don't have a lot of space, so past bodies of work just hang everywhere in my house. This is the current series that I'm working on. It will be opening in a solo show in April. I will be adding new paintings to my website every week, so you can check back there. It's just dottington.us. If you like that kind of content where I'm just showing you my process on some of the bigger acrylic and oil paintings, please do let me know. Usually I'm doing watercolor tutorials, step-by-step thingies, sketchbook tours, and the likes, but it is not very common for me to show you acrylic and oil happenings. So it would be very helpful for me to learn. If that interests you, you can let me know in the comments below, and you can like this video so I know. That's all I have to say. That's all I've got to say. Until next time, thanks so much for hanging out with me.